Thank you for joining me for another video. If you remember last week, and you probably should remember last week, we got into the book of Genesis. Got super deep into the very first 5 verses or so of the book of Genesis, the first day of creation. Now, that being said, there are going to be a lot of people who are not going to agree with my interpretation, and that's fine. It's absolutely fine. There are other Jews that who just don't accept it, and that's fine. We don't have to agree on everything. There's no issue with just saying, well, yes, you can believe that, and I will believe what I want to believe. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So I am giving my opinion. I'm looking at my notes because I specifically wrote in there to say it. I am giving my opinion. There are other observant Jews who are going to disagree with me. There are Christians who are... If you're a Christian and you don't disagree with me, something is wrong, okay? Because you either shouldn't be a Christian or I should, one or the other. We should disagree about something. But if you are... a Christian, and you agree with my interpretation of the days of creation, okay, that's fine. There are other Christians who believe the same way. So apparently, it's not so crystal clear. And there are going to be people who are going to accuse me of heresy, and that's fine. I'm not doing this for them. I mean, I am, but I'm not, So I'm not arguing. One thing that I wanted to say before I get into it all is I'm not arguing that everything just sort of came into being on its own. If I were, okay, that would be heresy. That'd be an issue. That'd be a very serious issue, and I would not blame any Jew for just sort of not allowing me into their synagogue or whatever the case may be. I totally get that. But that's not the case. I'm not saying that everything just sort of came into being without a God. It just sort of, happened, just sort of big banged into existence. What I'm saying is God guided everything. And all the evidence that we have, all the scientific evidence that we have, I'm taking that into consideration as well. And it tells me that the Earth really is something like 4.6 billion years old. It may as well be all the years. Though I guess from the Earth's perspective, yes, it is all the years. So the planet is as old as the planet is. Yeah, it's clever. Anyway, we're going to get into it. It's a very Talmudic approach, by the way, to just sort of examine all sorts of other things. Very Talmudic, very methodical, and that's how I think. If there is more than one possible way to understand something, okay, so I'm going to side with. I'm a rationalist. I'm going to side with the most rational approach. I'm going to side with the scientific evidence. That doesn't mean I'm going to say that something in the Torah is wrong. I'm going to use the science to help me interpret the Torah as it probably was intended to be interpreted by God. So, that being said, we're going to talk about the second day today. Second day today. Interesting. So we're going to be in Genesis 1, verses 6 through 8. Just like last time, I'm going to read it in Hebrew, then I'll translate it. You may notice that my translation is a little bit different than yours, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just making it up as I go. I'm just sort of making up. Well, I'm not making it up. I'm translating it as I'm reading it. So here we go. verse 6. ויאמר אלוהים הרקיעה בתוך המים ויהי ויהי מבדיל בין מים למים. וירס אלוהים את הרקיע ויבדל בין המים אשר מתחת לרקיע ובין המים אשר מעל לרקיע ויהי כן. ויקרא אלוהים לרקיע שמיים. It's interesting. Anyway, ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום שני. So I just thought it was interesting that it says I just noticed something. It's not that it says anything. I just noticed something. So it says and God said, be a firmament, let a firmament be, let a firmament come into being. In the water, in, how does this translate it? The midst of the waters. There we go. And let it divide between water and water. And God made the firmament and separated between the water beneath the firmament and the waters which are above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament Shemaim, heaven, or heavens. Sky is another, at least halfway decent translation. And there was evening and there was morning one day. Now, one thing that is, the second day, not one day. I was looking at the exact wrong spot, man. One thing that is interesting that I want to just sort of throw out there before I get into it is the text does not say that it was good. Literally every other day of creation it says that God saw that it was good. The sixth day, everything was very good. Interesting that it doesn't, and there's a lot of commentary on that. I think that the most reasonable thing is one of the rabbis, I forget exactly which one, in the Midrash specifically says that the reason that that particular day was not called good, the second day was not called good, is because there was division that happened. It was an intentional division, and that's never a good thing. So points to the rabbi whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. That is profound, and it has really quite profound implications. That being said, what we just read in the Torah is the creation of a life-promoting atmosphere. Now, don't let, take these off, don't let the fancy word firmament throw you off. Okay, it's a fancy word, right? Really cool word. It just means a barrier, right? It means just some sort of something that acts as, let's call it a fence. And I'll get into what the word actually means in the Hebrew here in just a little bit. Now, when you say it without the word firmament, it really sounds kind of bland. If you just say, oh, God made the atmosphere, it's really sort of bland. But, now I'm going to go back to my glasses. I shouldn't have taken them off. How silly of me. This day is anything but. Like, this is a really exciting time in history. Okay, so specifically what we're looking at is an Earth that is undergoing a transformation of the atmosphere from being, rich in carbons and things like that, methane, that sort of chaotic elements that we just can't breathe it. We can't, that's why I say a life-supporting atmosphere. So it's transforming from a very toxic environment, to us, toxic environment, to an oxygen-rich atmosphere that, it supports life. And frankly, I think that we all enjoy that today. This transformation was actually called the Great Oxygenation Event. There are other names for it. I like that one because it just sounds cool. And it took place between 2.4 and 2 billion years ago, right? How long ago was this? All of the years. All of them. It was a long, long time ago. It may as well have been a gajillion years ago, right? So even though saying God made the atmosphere, does sound sort of bland, okay, so it's really not. It's actually quite cataclysmic because there were microscopic life forms that used some form of photosynthesis. There we go. Where they used solar power, if you will, the dim glow of the sun, because it wasn't very bright on Earth at the time. So they used the light, the small bit of light that did reach the Earth's surface, and it photosynthesized. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but that's what I'm going with, because yeah, baby, that sounds great. Photosynthesize. It's photosynthetic, man. It's just like back in the 90s when you used to take, your film to be developed, right? And I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going. I think I've gotten off on a tangent here. Those of you who are old enough to remember the 90s, good on you. So the earliest forms of life on Earth were microscopic, and they thrived I say they thrived. They didn't really thrive per se, but they survived in that methane-rich atmosphere, that atmosphere that is toxic to everything that we have now. Now, some eventually evolved the ability to, rather than using retinol as their the basis for their photosynthesis, they developed the ability, they evolved the ability to use chlorophyll. So rather than being, say, purple or reddish, plants, or not plants, these organisms were suddenly turning green, like algae. And they produced oxygen as a waste product, right? I'm not teaching you anything that they didn't teach you in elementary school. I'm just applying it in a biblical sense here, okay? Unless you went to a religious school, in which case they might not have taught you any of this. I didn't learn this in elementary school, but the reason for that is because I was homeschooled for a while, and then I went to a private school in high school for a couple of years. So I never really learned anything about, evolving anything or an ancient Earth. I was actually raised in the sort of young Earth tradition, where I knew very little about an ancient Earth or evolution until I was an adult, and I was actually able to put in the research team. So maybe you're in the same boat. I don't know. Oxygen waste product. So the process of evolution, yeah, it's actually very complex, but it's, explaining it is relatively easy to do, right? So each generation reproduces itself. Okay, let's use my wife and myself. Okay. We have 4 children. We have a 5th one coming in July, I think. June, July, I don't even know. But maybe it was June. Seems like it was June. I don't know. She's pretty big. And I'm not going to let her see this video because I like having a wife. But we have 4 children who are with us currently. Another one on the way. And in general, our 4 children, look like one of us. Okay, most of them look like me, actually, but that's not important right now, okay? My youngest one actually looks like my father-in-law, which is hysterical. Like, he looks just like a very young version of my father. But anyway, of the four children, they have three eye colors, right? I have brown eyes. I have very dark brown eyes. I don't know if you can see in the video. My wife has pale blue eyes, right? And I've got both of my sons have blue eyes, although they're different shades of blue, so I'm told. And my girls, on the other hand, one of them has my color eyes, dark brown. The other one has hazel eyes. Well, how did that happen? Well, that's how evolution works. Each successive generation is slightly different from the generation that precedes it. So each child generation is going to take the DNA that's passed down from its parent generation, but it's going to alter it slightly. Okay, that's just a small example for how evolution works. Now, over sort of a longer time period, now obviously we do have the genetic possibility between my wife and me for hazel eyes, and that's why we have a child with hazel eyes. But there is, let's say, an infinite possible variation within the possible genetic coding of any given thing's DNA, right? So I just got to figure out where I am exactly. Oh yeah, so that's what happened during the Great Oxygenation Event. Okay, so you have all these older cyanobacteria, is what they were, who were using retinol for their photosynthesis. It didn't go over very well because it was less advantageous. It was more advantageous to evolve the ability to just use chlorophyll instead, and so eventually that's what happened. And those cyanobacteria passed on those genes to their progeny, and so on and so forth, until we reach, I don't know, everything. I don't even know really what a cyanobacteria is. I do know that it is a bacteria of some sort, though, so that's that. Now, this whole thing, it's still happening today. Evolution still is happening today. And this photosynthesis, this photosynthetic, I'm keeping that. That might actually be the right way to say it, but I'm keeping it, and I will use it, even if it's not the right way to use it. So this photosynthesis thing with chlorophyll is still happening today. That's why most plants are green. They take in the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and they expel oxygen as a waste product. So billions of years ago, there was sort of a leap forward in terms of evolution of the cyanobacteria that allowed them to thrive, because apparently chlorophyll is better than retinol for photosynthesis. I don't know. I don't study that sort of thing. That's not my field of expertise. I do have a science degree, but I don't have a degree in that science. So now the atheist is going to tell you, or he'll try to tell you anyway, that all of this just sort of suddenly developed just all in and of itself. And it's understandable, if you're looking at the fossil record. However, what I'm going to tell you is, that my understanding, and certainly the Torah's understanding, is that no, God guided this whole entire process from start to finish. Technically, we're not finished yet, but from the beginning, God guided it all. That's just how that works. Now, the oxygenation of the atmosphere took the better part of 1 billion years. It was around, 0.6, 0.7-ish billion years. So the better part of 1 billion years, and it produced the current atmosphere, this current oxygen-rich atmosphere. We got between, at any given moment, 21 and 23, I think, percent oxygen in the atmosphere. The majority of it, like 73%, I think, is nitrogen. So there's that. Although nitrogen, pure nitrogen, will kill you. That's really sort of strange. Not actually sure why it works that way. I don't know, man. I work with nitrogen, so, I You'd think I would know. I just know it's dangerous stuff if used in an enclosed area, right? So this actually, as the atmosphere became more oxygenated and less methanized. Screw it, that's what I'm going with, man. Yeah, less methanized, less carbon-based, less methane, that sort of thing in the atmosphere. As it changed to an oxygen-rich environment, that was the very first great extinction event. Something like 95% of all species, which at the time were mostly bacteria, were wiped out. We don't really have too many fossils of that, but they were all wiped out. Why? Because suddenly they couldn't breathe. Why? Because they were used to breathing other things. So the methane in the atmosphere was oxidized into carbon dioxide and water, which actually had a cooling effect on the Earth. Imagine, now they're saying, oh, carbon dioxide's the enemy, it's making it hotter. But it actually, at the time, had a cooling effect. That's interesting. And it ultimately culminated in the Huronian glaciation. I'm not sure that I'm saying that right, and I may be saying that very wrong. So that's what science tells us. Right? So let's talk about the interpretation of ancient Semitic peoples when it comes to the firmament, the atmosphere. Right? So one of the questions that I have actually been asked a lot lately, and it kind of bothers me that people have been asking me about this, is if there's anything in Jewish sources, the Torah, the Talmud, whatever the case may be, that indicates a flat Earth. Here we are in the 21st century. We've sent men into space, into orbit. We have satellites up there in orbit. We're progressing at a point, to a point where we're going to be sending people to Mars, probably within my lifetime. And we still have people here, that actually believe that the Earth is flat, and claim that Australia does not exist. And by the way, one of my viewers, if you're one of those flat earthers out there, one of my viewers actually lives in Australia. So yeah, there's that. So take that. He's in on the conspiracy. So the short answer is actually no, there is nothing in Jewish text that would lead you to believe in a flat Earth. There's also nothing in Jewish text that will lead you to believe in a spherical Earth. Why? Because the Torah is not a science book. I believe I said that last week. Now, it does appear that the ancient Semites did believe that the land was the land, not necessarily the planet Earth, but the land was sort of a plain, sort of a relatively flat plain that floated on top of the primordial sea, and you had the heavens above us, and the the underworld beneath us, and that the firmament, the Raqi'a, was really sort of a dome that was held up perhaps by pillars or mountains. And at the time I could certainly understand that, just looking at what they had to work with. I get it. And then we have no reason to believe, obviously there's nothing in the Tanakh, there's nothing in the Talmud that backs that up, but we have no reason to believe that the ancient Israelites at the time of the giving of the Torah believed anything different. In fact, the word for firmament literally means like to stretch out or to beat out, to beat flat, right? So, I mean, it may very well be that the ancient Israelites, my ancestors, believed that, the earth was like a bowl that had been beaten out and just sort of set on top of the mountains. I don't know. It is depicted several times in the Tanakh, but never openly saying anything conclusive about it. You know, there are just sort of poetic references to it. The firmament does appear to be depicted in pre-biblical Semitic sources as a solid dome covering the land. Solid meaning you can't pass through it. And technically they're not wrong there. It is a dome covering the land. So they're not technically wrong, they're just also not right. And this dome engulfs the entire planet, which, by the way, yes, it is a sphere. We have sent people into space who can confirm, yes, it is a sphere. There. And Australia exists. There. That's, I'm in on the conspiracy. Now, the firmament is shown in Babylonian sources as being supported by pillars or mountains. So, yeah, it does appear that pre-Israelite Semites did believe that the land was a flat plain. There's no real consensus on what exactly it meant to the ancient Israelites, but it's not important because when it comes to scripture, we just sort of have to accept the scientific interpretation of it all. Now, in conclusion, day 2. Actually, no, I got one more thing I want to say. So there is there's a midrash where I believe it's Beth Hillel and Beth Shammai that are sort of debating things, right? And one of them says, oh, the angels were created on day 2 of creation. And one of them says, oh, no, the angels were created on day 5 of creation. And they both brought scriptural proofs for it. And then, Shimon ben Yochai, a third rabbi, steps up and says, guys, some of them were made on day 2, some of them were made on day 5. How is that hard to, at least you don't believe that one of them was made on day 1, So, and I'm not going to get into that in this video. Maybe next video. Maybe on day 5. Who knows? But I will be coming back to that because I do think that both of them were right. But we'll get into that. So in conclusion, now we're concluding. The second day of creation covered the period in which the modern atmosphere came into being. Ancient understandings of what exactly this means have been shown to be imperfect by modern science, but not completely inaccurate. There are some secrets of creation that are only known to God. But it does certainly appear that God wants us to discover those secrets for ourselves. Okay? He gave us the Torah, which gives us a version to sort of whet our appetites, gives us a version of what happened, and was revolutionary at the time because it helped us get a foot in the door there. So who knows what we'll discover in the future. That being said, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, everything. Then subscribe, hit the notifications on button, and then go over to my Facebook if you haven't yet. Just search for An Unorthodox Jew. Find me, drop by, say howdy, like/follow. If you have questions or you want to continue this discussion further, go ahead and you can ask me questions in the comments for this video, or you can private message me on Facebook and I will respond. I promise you. It might take me a little bit, but I will respond. That being said, that's all I got. So, shalom.